I'm Mario. Might have seen me before. I sometimes speak at conferences, meetups, and things, and I'd love to share just like a general understanding. How can you speak at DroidCons, at other conferences, and maybe also share some beautiful, beautiful other insights with you later on. Like, we have free tickets, but sadly you have to wait till the end of my talks in order to see how you can get free tickets. So why? Why do I want to implant the idea into you to be speaking at conferences? I think it's like a great learning opportunity, right? Because like in order to be on stage and like give a cohesive talk, you should be knowing what you're talking about. I think this is like always the best first recommendation, know what you're talking about. And in order to know what you're talking about, you need to research it and explore it or have worked on it before. So for me, this is a great way of sharing the knowledge, getting the knowledge, and also hanging out with other people to like see what are other parts of the technology or the infrastructure doing. And lastly, it is also fun. Contrary what other people might say, it is actually amazing to be on stage and just like be there, hear what other people are saying and get the feedback and also the questions from the audience. It's just a nice way of interacting with each other. And actually, like when you have to present something, you learn it a different way and you learn it deeper than if you would just use it. This is a bit more theory because academia is great. I want to quickly highlight where can you be talking, right? We are at something called a meetup right now. So like the familiar thing here is, we meet here and I'll go into the details later on. Then we have a bit of a bigger one, which is called conferences, and something in between a meetup and a conference can be a workshop, right, where you're presenting your ideas. And what I will not highlight into this talk is like what is a webinar, what is a podcast, and what's a live stream. Those are other opportunities for you to speak and share your knowledge. Meetups, they exist on so many different topics, right? If you go to meetup.com or the GGG community.dev, you'll find a lot of communities that are talking about Android, about Go, about Google technologies, about whatever you are interested in. Or you might want to get interested in. The thing is, for me, characteristically, at least for Berlin, it's you have less than 100 people attending. Right? Look around into the room, we are less than 100 people today. And also the timeline for those meetups is hours, right? So like you will be here for hopefully 2 hours, have a great discussion, have some food and drinks. With this one, it's a bit special because like we actually have a bar right close by to us, but we don't have food here. So please stay for the drinks. But also what identifies a meetup for me is like the more communal atmosphere, right? So like you have an easier entry to talk to your fellow developers, for instance, right? So like I've seen it before when you were entering, you were talking to each other about beautiful things. And I feel this is something meetups are easy to get into. And yeah, I listed out some of the examples, right? So like the GGG Berlin Android, this is the one you're currently at. There's one of the examples. There are other GDGs in Berlin. There's the Kotlin user group. There are women tech makers, and there are other Java user groups, for instance. Then let's take a look at what other opportunities there are, right? So like a workshop, you probably have heard about it before, just like summarizing it to have a full picture here, is like a specific item where people meet, usually in person, and you get a deep dive into a technology. And also here, this deep dive into technology is for less than 100 attendees, I would say. Maybe even 20 people would be acceptable for a workshop because therefore it's like, again, even closer to get to know each other and therefore also the topic more. Also here, the workshop usually is hours, right? You sit down in a room together with the rest of your group, you get taught a bit of what is the topic you want to learn, and then you apply it actively on your laptop after the talk. And also there, sometimes you get food. Speaking of food, now we come to the bigger topic of today, which are conferences, right? Those are several days spanning events where different topics, sometimes in different tracks, which is like one area of the conference that separates each other from other areas of the conference. That's called a track, usually with a stage and people talking in this one. This style of events has more than 100 attendees, right? So there are some conferences that have 15,000 attendees. There are some who have in the hundreds. And the idea here is to get a lot of knowledge in a small amount of time with a lot of people. We were talking about some before, right? So the Merge, the We Are Developer, the DroidCon, the Google I/O, and the DevFests are common examples for conferences that are happening here in Berlin. And like just highlighting the Google I/O, for instance, this will also be happening in Berlin as a side event to the big Google I/O, and it's going to be exciting to see that it's actually coming over to us this year. Okay, let's go a bit deeper into like conferences. And there's a reason why I have picked the Merge, the We Are Developers, and the DroidCon, which one you will find out in a bit. The Merge is a developer experience conference happening in June from the 13th to the 14th, and will be happening in the Arena Berlin. They self-titled them as the Ultimate Developer Experience Conference. I just let it in this room like this and see what it actually is, because it's also the first time that the Merge is happening. I'm very curious to see how this shapes out to be. They say it's a vibrant community of fellow developers and developer relations professionals. Just as a side mark, developer relations are developers who are having the job of promoting the products of the company they're working in. I myself am a developer relations evangelist, which is partly developer, partly product, partly marketing, partly whatever else we can push on top. The idea here is you go to the Merge, you have lots of learnings, you have lots of fun, you have friendship merge into an unforgettable experience. So I needed to read this out because it sounds very marketing-y, and I'm curious how it holds up and see like how the actual conference is. If you want to find out more, merge.berlin is the actual URL where you can find out more details. Another example, which goes in a completely different direction, is the We Are Developers. This is one of the conferences that is 15,000 attendees big. So it is very, very huge. The highlight here is also that this one goes for different technologies. So no matter your tech stack, you will find something for you. But with also the tech stack and the size, it comes to that like maybe it's getting a bit too broad for your liking, right? So you will not get the newest NFC on Android discussions there. You will get more high-level discussions usually, which is also fine, you know? Like therefore you have the broad and the breadth of different ideas to be shared there. And also I have to say this, there will be the Daikatana guy too this year. If you didn't get this one and why this is the part of the fun, just come to me afterwards and I'll talk more about Daikatana guy. Also, if you want to find out more about the conference, we have a beautiful URL there displayed on the screen, wearedevelopers.com/worldcongress. Okay, and now we come to my favorite of the three so far, because the DroidCon, right? We are an Android meetup here, so maybe we can work together to also go to the DroidCon and make it the best we can. Berlin.droidcon.com is the address where you find out all of the information that is currently available, and it calls itself the premier Android developer conference. I don't know if I would even call it the only one, but it's definitely an Android developer conference. This year in Berlin, there are also adjacent technology topics discussed, right? I think there will be Flutter again as a conference part, and there will also be a part where you can take a look into lead development, right? So like, what would be the step up from being a developer? How do you lead a group? And We, as the developer community in Berlin, are also planning to make a big splash there again, to have a big booth and share our love with technology and Android at the conference, and make you write code once again, but this time different, or maybe not, you will see. But anyway, that's enough advertisement for us at the community event there. Let's find out how we are actually getting there, right? If you have a paying customer, right? If you are a company that happens to sponsor the DroidCon, it is very likely and that you randomly also be able to get a talk there. You know, because sponsorship money and things might be helpful. Not saying that it is, but it could happen. But on the other hand, if you are coming with your open source idea or you have a technology that you think you want to bring out to the rest of the world, you can also apply with a talk there. And this is where we are going to see that if you're applying with a talk there will be a community of talk raters that are rating and taking a look at your talk and saying like, hey, does this fit? Does this work? And maybe we can get you in there. And you see it in fat, bold, and underlined. You have 1 week, right? So that's why I think it's also the right time for you right now to start or even finish thinking about applying there. Because after this week, you will have lost your chance, at least for the DroidCon in Berlin, because then that will be happening next year again. But fret not, there are also other DroidCons in the world, right? There are some in New York, some in San Francisco, there's one in the UK, and countries I probably forgot already. Feel free to go to droidcon.com or find me afterwards. There are a lot of DroidCons in the world. Okay, so let's say you have an idea, but you don't quite know if it fits into what the conference wants to hear. The initial idea is you go to the website. They usually have something called a call for participation. Sometimes they call it call for papers out of the academia, which is the thing that you need to apply with, right? So like this is a form you have to fill out with the right details, and then they at some point take a look at it and say, yes, this is a great talk, or sadly, we cannot offer you this talk at this time. Looking at the website, you'll find those main categories. Don't be too confused about those categories, right? So like if you have a great talk idea that does not quite fit in here, it still works. Like this is the idea from the organizers that is not necessarily bought into by the talk raters, right? So like the people who are taking a look at your application will not necessarily look if you tick one of the boxes. If your talk is interesting enough, it doesn't need to fit in one of those categories. But the categories they're writing out there is what we would expect, right? So it's the AI topics, it is the Android 15 OS, it's Jetpack Compose. What about large screens? So like if you have like a big phone or something. How about you have a third or fifth camera on your phone or something with graphics? I actually had to talk about Vulkan there several years ago, so this can also get very nerdy very fast. And if you find the right people or the right way of phrasing it, it could be also working here. Also, the most important thing I always say last, app performance seems to be important to those people too. But this is a bit more generic than I want to, right? I want to condense it into like what I think would be nice to see when you are applying with a talk, right? So like, what would I say would be a good candidate? I put it down into 3 points right now. And this is one is called war stories, which is like, I'm not sure, I don't like the term, but the idea behind is nice. It's like a thing that you did in the war that you want to tell people about, not the other parts. So this is a learning that you had while working on your code at work or outside and say like, hey, this is amazing. I have a great learning with this one. I want to talk about it. Similarly, it could be you overcome a problem, right? So like I finally figured out how to use the printing API. I need to talk to everybody about this one. This would be going for me to the war story kind of thing. Something somebody can learn from listening to your talk. But also thinking about it, what's your specific take, right? So what makes it different, right? So like a lot of people use Jetpack Compose nowadays, but maybe there is a way that you are using it that makes it less efficient, more efficient, or integrates with something else that nobody has thought about. This is the edge you need, right? Because I feel a basic talk for Jetpack Compose is also needed and important, but there you have a hard time sticking out. And I feel here, if you find a way to stick out, perfect. And this third tip from this category here is build a short abstract, right? Don't overcomplicate what is the idea. If you can think about it in an elevator pitch while going down the stairs or something and write it down in several short paragraphs, that is amazing. As a rater of talks, I do not want to read like paragraphs over paragraphs what your talk will be about. I want to have it concise and short, because think about my work life, right? So like I'm rating potentially hundreds of talks. Do I have the time to read all of the talks in all of the detail? Yes, obviously I do, because I'm a good rater, but it makes it easier for me to have a short and concise talk than like paragraphs over paragraphs. Also make me curious, right? So like talk about something I haven't heard before. Talk about something I have heard before in a different perspective. Like write something that you think is amazing and could inspire somebody else. How do you find this one? Talk to other people. Like just use this community here and say like, hey, I have this idea. Is this an interesting one? Yes, no, and if no, then let's tweak it to make it interesting. And then let's talk about Nick's suggestions. Who is Nick? I don't know, you will find out at the DroidCon. Like I was starting already before, right? If you can get feedback on your abstract, that's amazing. Share it with somebody and see if they like it, right? Just see how they react. This can be a great one in order to find out, does this work? Would I get an audience or not? I also like the next one of just like write it down in a notepad or something and then let it simmer. Put it down to the side, sleep over it, and then the next day take a look at it. Is it still good, or was something else influencing me while writing this one? If it's still good, it is probably a good one. Let's apply it and see what happens. And we touched it in a bit before, right? Talk about something that is interesting to you. I want to see why you are motivated with this one. I want to see your inspiration. I want to see why you are the one talking about it. Is it because you have a specific take on it? Is it because it made your life so much easier? Or is there something else that made it really, really good for you? And last but not least, have fun, right? This is obviously mandatory. If you are not having fun, none, and just kidding here in this case, but I feel for you personally, it also needs to be not a chore. Because if you are going upstairs, up to the stage, and like you do it because you have to, those are some of the talks that are dreadful for the audience, right? We all were hopefully sitting, or not hopefully, that sounds terrible, but we're sitting in talks where we just didn't get what is happening. And in order to avoid this kind of thing, I really want to know your spirit and your inspiration about this topic. And now let's get more concrete, right? How would you do this? The next step is like, obviously you have ideas. Let's, if you feel already ready, put it into the session-nice link I've put up there, and I'll share afterwards with everyone. And go through the form and apply with it. If you're feeling a bit unsure about it, then let us just take the break and discuss it a bit more. Like this is also what we are here for, right? If you have ideas, let's talk. But also don't take too long, right? You have 1 week-ish till the talk needs to be submitted. Once the talk is submitted and the deadline is passed, there will be several weeks of deliberation. Again, like there are hundreds of people applying for hundreds of talks. So you need to give the raters some time in order to make an understanding of what the talks are, which talks they take, and which one they put into the schedule and which one they won't. Either way, you will get an answer. You get a positive answer or you get a negative answer saying like, sorry, did not make it. Sorry, your talk did not make it. Once the talk made it, like you obviously celebrate with whatever beverage you like afterwards, but the other good outcome is you get a ticket. You get a ticket to be at the conference. The conference is essentially free for you. And sometimes, I'm not sure about this one today, you also get a second ticket for your +1. Like if you have a good friend or coworker or both you want to invite to the DroidCon, this would be what the ticket is used for. If it's not happening, please come back to me and we'll find a solution. But this is ending the talk part of my talk, right? So if you are not good with words, that is the joke here, thank you. This worked out greatly, thank you. I will revert it for the next time better. There are other ways to get involved with those conferences, right? You do not need to be on stage if you don't feel ready yet or if it's just not your cup of tea. You can become an organizer. You can become an organizer of meetups or help out otherwise. This is obviously the self-take, right? So like if you feel like the thing we're doing here has great impact and you want to contribute somehow, let us talk more about it. But you can also become a volunteer at conferences. Volunteers here go into different categories. Like the DroidCon is looking for volunteers who help us with video or be runners or something similar, where you work a bit of the time, but then also get a conference ticket for free. We, as the community, are also looking for volunteers, right? We will have a booth and we would like to have people there from the community representing the community and helping us out with the beautiful shenanigans we have planned for this year's DroidCon. So if this is interesting to you, again, there will be links in a second. And yeah, if you are attending, again, you get a ticket for free as one of the volunteers. And also here, I think what I wanted to say is feel free to come up with ideas, right? Like if you feel like, for instance, the meetup we are doing here could need a specific thing or would benefit from, hey, I'm happy to hear about it and let's see how we can work together and contribute together. Okay, and now please all take out your notepads and write this down with me. For all of those 3 big conferences, we have a raffle for free tickets and we have codes for tickets off, right? So like if you have an education budget, for instance, at your company and it's not quite enough there, maybe the 25% off or the 40% off is enough to make it through your education budget. But also we have the call for volunteers I was just speaking about, right? So this is either the DroidCon for the DroidCon itself or the DroidCon at the community booth. The most important thing is the link down here. This is a link tree that contains all of the URLs that helps you to find out like, okay, do I go to the merge conference? Which link is the one for the free ticket? Which is the user code and so on? They are all under this link tree. And I'll also share this one on Blue Sky and Mastodon later on. So be fast. For the raffles, just for full completeness, I will put down, like this is a form where essentially you leave your email address. I will make a random list out of this one, pick the first N, and those are the winners. If you want to sway the randomness in your favor, you have also a free text field where you have to describe why it should be you. Exactly. Find a way to convince us that it needs to be you and only you. So then you get all the 10 tickets we have. Just kidding. But yeah, so with this one, I say again, like Linktree Speaking in Berlin is our Linktree. Take a look at it if you haven't already. I'm happy for any questions you might have.